Greetings everyone. Today we're going to explore writing a linear equation from a graph and information. Make sure to have your note sheet ready. Let's start by talking about and reviewing slope-intercept form. Slope-intercept form is y equals mx plus b. Now we've been using this for a while, and in order to use this equation, we have had to start at our y-intercept, which is represented by a b, and count our slope from that point using the m. The difference today is we're going to write the equation given information. So I'm replacing the m and replacing the b. So if you do have a highlighter, I would suggest highlighting the m and highlighting the b. So if I go to rewrite this, to write an equation, when I'm told that m is -5, and b is 0, -1. That means I keep the y equals and I keep the x. But instead of m, I'm going to write -5. And instead of b, I'm going to write -1. I can reread this and say y equals mx plus b. I can see that information written, and now I could take this equation and graph it as well. Let's also review point-slope form. Remember, if you struggle with this, you might have to back up to our previous unit on graphing point-slope form. That's in my YouTube playlist. This is a review of point-slope form. Out of all of this information, we are usually given the slope, which is still the coefficient of x. We're also given an x-coordinate and a y-coordinate that we fill in. Now remember this special rule that we need to use the opposite signs for our x comma y. Remember that rule? That still holds true. So if I'm going to write my equation, I can almost set it up and fill in the blanks, meaning I need to fill in my y-coordinate, I need to fill in my slope, and I need to fill in my x-coordinate. Let's take a look. My m is written as 2/3, so my coefficient of x is 2/3. My x value says +6, so I write x minus 6. My y says -3, so I write y plus 3. Again, if that doesn't make sense to you, please go back and watch my previous point slope form video. Now let's review writing an equation from a graph. The first thing you need to do is identify the slope, right? You're going to have to actually count the rise run from the graph. Next, you want to identify the y-intercept, meaning where does it cross the y-axis? That's going to replace our b value because we're going to take and substitute that slope and that y-intercept into the formula for slope-intercept form. Remember, slope-intercept form is y equals mx plus b. You do have to have that memorized. So let's follow those 3 steps. Step 1, identify the slope. You have already assessed on finding slope from a graph, so I'm going to go through this quickly. If you struggle, please see my previous video. Rise, I'm going to go from this point to this point. And I see it's counting by 2s, so I'm going to rise 1, 2, 3, 4, +4, run 1, 2, it's to the right, so it's +2. So my slope is rise 4, run 2, but that simplifies down to just 2. Step 2, identify the y-intercept. I cross the y-axis right here. So if I count correctly using the scale 2, 4, 6, my y-intercept is 6. Step 3, we want to write our slope-intercept form equation, meaning y equals mx plus b, as I did in the notes. We're almost filling in the blanks here, right? The m always is the coefficient of x. The b is always added or subtracted on the right side. And I'm going to actually match my colors here. So my b is a positive 6. Keep in mind, if you just write 6, that's going to look weird. You do need a plus or minus because it's y equals mx plus b. You need an addition or subtraction right here. All right, let's go through the steps for writing an equation in point slope form from a graph. Well, it's written in the name. The first thing you need to do is identify the slope still. You have to count your rise over run. Sorry, my writing's kind of messy there. Secondly, it's in the name, point. You need to identify a point from the graph. Now, it can be any point. Sometimes I might give you directive to use the dot that I have made large and obvious. But on an assessment, you can use any point that you see that's exact on the graph. Well, then to write my equation, we're going to substitute that slope and that point into the point slope formula. Again, you do have to have this memorized. Y minus y equals mx minus x. So let's practice. Step 1, identify the slope. Well, I have a nice clear graph here. We're going to rise 2, that's positive 2. Run 1, 2, 3, that's to the right, so it's positive 3. Rise over run. No simplifying needed. Step 2, identify a point on the graph. So first of all, let me acknowledge I can't use the y-intercept. Look at where that would be. I'd be guessing like, I don't know, 3.3. I don't know. So because I don't know b, that's why we have to use point slope form. Because I do see points. So you could choose this point, or you could choose this point. I'm going to show you both. You only need to write down one. I'm going to color coordinate. The first, or the green point that I drew, is at 1, 4. Or if you want to use the purple point, you could use -2, 2. It makes it really fun to grade because there's a bunch of possible equations. Step 3, write the equation in point slope form. Remember, that's y minus y equals mx minus x. And we want to fill in my y coordinate, my slope, and my x coordinate. I'm going to write 2 ways though, because I chose 2 points. So just color coordinate with me, right? So first option, I'm just going to set it up here. Or second option, I'm going to set it up. So no matter what, our slope is the coefficient of x and it's 2/3, right? It doesn't matter. Everyone should have the same slope. But if you use the green point, it says x is +1, so I write -1. It says y, is +4, so I write -4 with my y. Again, if you're struggling with point slope form, see that previous video. But let's talk about if you use the purple dot. My x says -2, so I write x +2. It says that my y is +2, so I write y -2. So either equation would be accepted. Now, I don't have this in the current foldable. If this is an older video for you, it might be in your notes. Either way, make sure it's written somewhere. So if you're adding this to your notebook, just draw a quick little sketch, pause this video, and have that graph ready. Let's talk about writing this equation. Now, this is a special line, right? It has a slope of 0. That's unique. Now there's several ways you could write this, but let's make it easy. Remember the Mortvet word of slice? I know, that's just a me thing. I think it helps. If I asked you what axis is that line slicing, it's slicing the y-axis. What number is it slicing that y-axis at? -2. You don't need point slope form. You don't need slope intercept form. Even if I say, hey, what's SIF? Or what's PSF? The abbreviations for those two. You don't need to. You can just write y equals -2 and be done. Please pause this video if needed to draw this sketch in your notebook. This one is also a special line. You don't need a special SIF or PSF equation because the slope's undefined, so we can't even write it any other way. So remember my unique word. I like to use the word slice. This is a MortVet thing. What axis are you slicing? The X. At what number are you slicing? 5. My only acceptable answer here is x equals 5 for my equation of the line. Let's, if you can, jot this down in your notebook as well if it's not already on the note sheet. Okay? Got one more thing to try. This particular example has an equation with a line that's slope of 0. Well, you don't have to write this down. You don't have to, but I'm a visual learner, so I'm just going to be like, okay, I have the point 1, 4, and I have a slope of 0. 0 is like the grade of a floor, so it's horizontal. You do have to have that memorized. So I can see that this is special. So if I look at the picture, I could write my equation. Remember my little special word of slice? We only use slice if it's a special line. I'm slicing the y-axis at 4. You guys, take a look. Slope of 0, my y value is 4. So if you're a good memorizer, you could probably memorize that rule. I'm not a good memorizer, so I would draw a picture. I'm slicing the y at 4. Now, if you were to write in point slope form, let me just address this. This is what it would look like. But what's 0 times anything? 0. That whole right side would be 0. And if I was to add 4 over, I'd still get y equals 4. So don't waste your time doing point slope form or slope intercept form if it's horizontal or vertical. All right, I'm going to go through these examples, but technically your notes are done. If you're struggling and need more support, consider bookmarking at this moment in the video to use to study from. Let's talk about the blue line. The blue line, I'm going to explore writing in slope intercept form, meaning I need to fill in the slope and I need to fill in the y-intercept. We're also going to write in point slope form, which means I'm going to have to fill in an x and a y coordinate and the slope. All right, my blue line, let's count the slope of the blue line. Rise 1, 2, positive 2, run 1, 2, 3, positive 3. My slope of my blue line is 2/3, no matter which way I write it. My b value, my y-intercept, it crosses the y-axis at 0. So you could actually write it with the 0 or without, because plus 0 doesn't change anything. Let's take a look at point slope form. You'll notice that a dot was given to us, so let's use this dot. It's already there. If it says that the x coordinate is positive 3, I could write negative 3. If it says the y coordinate's positive 2, then I write negative 2. Now keep in mind that's not the only point I could use. I could use this dot over here. I could use 6, 4. I could use this dot over here, which is negative 3, negative 2, which means if your answer in point slope form is different than a friend's, you could both be correct. Again, extra examples if you need help preparing for an assessment. We're going to write the equation of a line that has this slope, so that's my m, and goes through this point, so that's my xy coordinate. Well, if I have a point and a slope, I have to write the equation in point slope form because that's what I'm given. That means I need to fill in my m, my coefficient. Oops, excuse me. My m, my coefficient of x, is negative 1/2. If it says my x value is negative 1, I write plus 1. If it says my y value is negative 3, I write plus 3. Let's try this purple line here. Same approach, we're going to write in slope-intercept form, and we're going to write in point-slope form. Either way, I have to fill in my slope on both of them. I have to fill in my b value on slope-intercept, and I have to fill in my point on point-slope form. All right, let's talk about that slope. Purple, I see a dot here and I see a dot here. Maybe you see different ones, but I'm going to count. Rise 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Positive 6. Run 1, 2, 3. Positive 3. Well, wait a second. My m is 6 over 3. What's 6 divided by 3? 2. So my slope is 2. Let's talk about our b. Our b value is where my purple line crosses the y-axis. It crosses right here at -4. -4. Let's talk about point slope form. I need a point. I'm given this point, so let's use it. That means that if my x says +3, I write -3. If it says my y is +2, I write -2. Let's review using this example. I'm given a slope of 1/3, and I'm given this point, but if I take a look, this could be my point, or because it's 0,7, that means it's on the y-axis. It's also my b value. So I would accept two options. If you chose SIF, or you could choose PSF. Let me show you both. If I choose either one, my coefficient of x, my slope, is 1/3. If I choose to write it in slope-intercept form, my b value is a +7. If I choose to write it in point-slope form, my x is 0, so I write +0. It says my y is +7, so I write -7. Now, because it's a 0, you could just leave it off. Or because it's a 0, you could write -0. Right? That doesn't matter, but the -7 does matter. Let's try another one. Write the equation of the red line, and we're going to write it both ways. So I'm going to fill in blanks for both. I like to set it up first. You got to have it memorized. Let's start by talking about the slope of our line. The slope of the red line. It looks like I have an intersection here and an intersection here. Rise 1, 2, 3, 4, +4. Run 1, +1. My slope is 4. Don't write 4 over 1, right? That's not simplified. So we just write 4. My b value. If I try to fill in my b value is where I cross the y-axis. You guys have no idea. It goes off the graph. So in this case, in Algebra 1, I would not have you figure it out. We don't know what the b value is. So I would only ask you to use point slope form on this one. Now, if you're watching this video because for review in Algebra 2, different expectations, but for now, let's just do point slope form. Point slope form, I can use any point. So let's say, I'm going to use this point. I'm pretty confident that the 6, 2 is a point. So if it says my x is +2, if it says my x is +6, I write -6. If it says my y is +2, I write -2. Let's try another example here. I know that my slope is 1, and it goes through the origin, which is 0, 0. This is what we call the parent function. Because if I go to fill in my slope is 1. If I go to fill in my y-intercept, it's 0. You guys, 1 times anything is itself. Plus 0 doesn't change anything. My equation is y equals x. You're going to see that again, so keep an eye out. Let's try this red line. And this one, I'm going to set it up and I'm going to try both options. All right, let's talk about our slope first. I need a slope to be my coefficient of x. I think I have a dot here, and I think I have a dot here. Rise -2, run +3. So my slope is -2/3. Next, I need to find my y-intercept. Uh-oh. You guys, do I know where that's crossing the y-axis? I don't. I mean, I could guess, but that's not good enough. So I cannot write slope-intercept form. That's a limit to what kind of equation I can write. But I can do point-slope form. So let's find a point that I can use for my point-slope form. You can use any dot, but I'm pretty confident in this intersection here, and that occurs at 5, -2. If it says x is +5, I write -5. If it says y is -2, I write +2. All right, I know those were a lot of extra examples, but it's a really good option for reviewing, especially for a learning check, okay? As always, make sure to check out Google Classroom, see what the task is for today, see what standards you maybe need to study for. Let me know what questions you have, and until next time, have a good one.